welcome to Justin's Morning Coffee. Okay, so it is time for the third plot out of the 7 basic plots. Today I want to talk about Voyage and Return. So we made it through Rags to Riches, Overcoming the Monster in previous videos, and now we are ready to tackle Voyage and Return. So you can think of it this way. Basically, we're climbing our way up the mountain here. So rags to riches, if you remember, that is going from adolescence to competence, going from being a child, sheltered in the world, and then finally learning how to rule properly, growing up, taking the training wheels off of the bicycle. That's kind of the basic of the rags to riches plot. Then overcoming the monster. What happens after you start to grow up? You venture out of the home, you start to accomplish things, you start to be successful. Monsters show up, antagonists show up, or as Robert McKee puts it, the forces of antagonism. So overcoming the monster really is, once you venture out, once you start to mature, you encounter evil, you encounter malevolence. And then you have to learn how to deal with the fact that not everybody out there in the world has your best interest in mind. In fact, there's actually people out there that would destroy you, or things or forces out there that would destroy you. There are enemies, and you have to learn how to deal with that. So that's the overcoming the monster plot. So now we're working our way up the mountain here. This is the mountain of success. This is the mountain of legacy. As we near the top of the mountain, we get to Voyage and Return. Now, what's the difference between Rags to Riches and Voyage and Return? Voyage and Return is that moment where usually kind of an adolescent to adulthood story, not necessarily childhood to adolescence, as you might say with Rags to Riches, but adolescence to adulthood. You get bored with the world, or you really, what I think it is you lose connection with meaning. You really have to develop a sense of meaning and purpose in the world. And so the Voyage and Return plot is Chronicles of Narnia, it's Robinson Crusoe, it's Alice in Wonderland, Shawshank Redemption. So basically the protagonist goes into a strange world. I like to think of it as a fish out of water story. So you wind up in a strange world and you have to learn how to conduct yourself in a world where the rules are not what you're used to. So you've learned about the world in some sense, but now you're encountering some new land, some new space, some new territory, and you're having to learn about the strange creatures in that land. You're having to learn about all that. And you're learning, basically, you can think of it as a voyage into an imaginary world in a symbolic sense. And then when you come back to the real world, you have grown. You now know how to operate in your own world a little bit better. Back to the future, something like that. Okay, now let's quickly go through the rest and then we'll get into Voyage and Return. So that gets us up, up the mountain of competence. You're learning how to operate in the world, each one of these, how to achieve fame and success, competence, rule properly, how to deal with malevolence in the world, how to deal with the forces of antagonism in the world, and then how to deal with the strange things outside of the bounds of your known world. And then we get to comedy, and comedy is the penultimate plot for the top of this mountain of success, and that's where you find your other half, you find your identity, you find out who you are, what your name is. So that's why always comedy has disguises, mistaken identities. It's going from confusion to clarity. So confused about your identity or questioning what your identity is, and then by the end of the comedy, everyone is in their proper place within the society. And then tragedy is the way down the other side of this. This is self-sabotage. This is where you live in a world that's competent and good, but then there's something in you, there's something that causes you to become the monster. You could say that overcoming the tragedy is that tragedy is overcoming the monster, but from the view of the monster. When we get to tragedy, I'm going to use the story of Hitler. The real life story of Hitler as a perfect example of the tragedy. And then the quest is when you're at the bottom of this midlife crisis and you need to find a way to get to the second mountain. The second mountain is legacy. You have had success. You've made it to the top of this mountain. You've had some part of your life where you tumbled down off that mountain of success, and now you really need to find legacy. You need to find out how to pass on your knowledge, your wisdom, your wealth, your treasure, your riches. All of that needs to be passed on to the next generation. And so that's what the second mountain is about. And that's what the rebirth plot is about. This is Ebenezer Scrooge realizing that he can't take his money with him. And so he needs to give it back to the community. That's the essence of the rebirth plot. Okay, so that's a little overview. And so now let's start looking into Voyage and Return. So Voyage and Return is Peter Rabbit, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Wizard of Oz, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prodigal Son, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Gone with the Wind, Time Machine, Orpheus, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, Lord of the Flies, Gulliver's Travels, The Matrix. It's a really, really popular plot. Now, a lot of people confuse this with The Quest, and there's some key differences here. So we'll go over that as we go along. But let's just take a brief sketch now of the 5 acts within this plot type. Okay, so it's the same 5 acts that we had in Overcoming the Monster, the same 5 acts that we had in Rags to Riches. It's just a little bit of differences in what these acts do. So we start off with the anticipation stage. Remember, the anticipation stage in Overcoming the Monster was there's a monster out there. We live in a safe place. There's a monster out there. In this case, something's not quite right about the world. So Alice is getting bored and sleepy. Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption has trouble with his marriage with his wife. His wife is cheating on him. Same thing with Robinson Crusoe. He just wants to get away. He's bored with the world. So that's really, I think the anticipation stage is this loss of the connection with meaning. So there's this kind of loss of what's my purpose in life? What's the meaning of life? What's the point of life? So that's why boredom, sleep and boredom are 2 major themes in this plot type. So you'll notice a lot of people falling asleep and then they go into this dream stage. Okay, so then the next part is the dream stage. This is when Alice goes down the rabbit hole. This is when the the children in the Chronicles of Narnia go through the wardrobe into the strange land of Narnia. This is in the time machine where he goes back in time. This is basically the entrance of a portal into another world, and that world is strange and confusing, and the protagonist doesn't know what to do or how to operate in that world. However, in the dream stage, much like we saw in Overcoming the Monster, there is a fantasy, a positive fantasy-like quality in this dream stage. So when Alice goes into the strange world, it's magical and funny and quirky, and everything is full of wonder. So it's the opposite of that boredom that you see in the very beginning in the anticipation stage. So again, and it's akin to the same thing as happens in Overcoming the Monster when there's this initial success. You enter into this world, and usually the first person that someone meets is an ally. Lucy runs into Mr. Tumnus in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Basically, you haven't discovered the bad actors in that world yet. So you've got it easy at first. It's like with riding the bike with the training wheels, right? It's a little easy at first because the people that would do you harm, they haven't discovered you yet. Robinson Crusoe, he meets Friday, and he doesn't know about the group on the island, the cannibals on the island that are going to come into play later. And so at first, things are kind of dreamlike, and they're relatively easy. Then comes the frustration stage. You can think of the frustration stage as the Nephros characters in the land start to take notice. Okay, so you go in there. Think of any situation. You waltz into some place, and you start taking what you want, and you start organizing things according to your liking. And eventually, someone's going to wake up and say, "Excuse me, this is not okay. We don't appreciate that." And you're going to start to encounter frustrations. This is when the initial dream stage devolves into a more realistic view of this other world. You're starting to see the problems of the other world. You're starting to see that this other world is not perfect. And then that leads into the nightmare stage, where now that you've woken up the antagonist, now that the queen has heard about you, she wants to say, off with you, off with his head, off with your head. off with Alice's head. So the nightmare stage is now the full force of the forces, the full attention, you could say, of the forces of antagonism. So the full brunt of that force is now directed at you, and then we've got the thrilling escape, just like we had in Overcoming the Monster. Okay, so that's kind of a brief overview. So let's start with the anticipation stage. Let's just look at a couple different examples. So let's start with Alice in Wonderland.
Much accustomed to usurpation and conquest, and even Steigand. Alice, will you kindly pay attention to your history lesson?
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it? But in my world, the books will be nothing but pictures. If I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. And contrary-wise, what it is, it wouldn't be. And what it wouldn't be, it would. In my world, you wouldn't say, meow. You'd say, yes, Miss Alice.
Okay, so basically, Alice is bored with the world. So that's one of the qualities of this anticipation stage, that there's something not quite right with the world that this protagonist lives in. And then she says, in my world, what? Everything would be upside down. The cat would be talking like a human, and there would be pictures in all of the books, and so the inversion and things that usually are small are big, and things that are big are small. This whole upside down world that's what it's anticipating here. So that's one of the qualities of the Voyage and Return plot, is that this world that they're going to enter in, it's not going to have the rules of the world that you and I know. It's going to have a strange world. Okay, so that's all it takes. A little bit of dissatisfaction with the world that you're in. A little bit of sense of that boredom really symbolizes a lack of meaning, like I said. So let's take a look now at Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, if home's still there.
Isn't it time you were in bed?
Yes, Mum.
Ed!
Gastrovascular.
Well, is it Latin?
Is it Latin for worst game ever invented?
We could play hide and seek. Come on, Peter, please.
Okay, so in this case, Lucy in Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's the same sense. Like, it's raining outside, it's boring, they're stuck in this big house, and she wants to play hide and seek. So again, there's this desire for something more exciting, something more meaningful. That's one of the connections, I think, between meaning and boredom, right? Something exciting, right? We don't always want, as human beings, the easiest life possible, a life devoid of conflict, a life without any challenges. And so there's a sense when you get into this kind of place of stagnation, which is characterized by boredom and sleepiness, there's a sense that you need to get revitalized. You need to get renewed. You need to have a new sense for the adventure of life, something like that. Okay, so that's the anticipation stage in Chronicles of Narnia. How about Shawshank Redemption?
Would my every prayer begin and end there? Would all this be true if I didn't care for you? If I didn't care.
Okay, so the words of the song there, if I didn't care. Again, you see this theme of boredom, not caring. Something is not right. You're not happy in the world that you live in. Now, in this case, we see a gun and a bottle of whiskey, and we later learn, if you've seen Shawshank Redemption, that Andy Dufresne was accused of the murder of his wife on this very night. And you find out later in the plot that he was about to go break up this love nest that his wife was in with that gun. But he decided not to that night. And so, in fact, he's innocent of the crime that he is accused of. But something's clearly not right in his world, right? He's not perfect. He's got problems with his relationships. He's got problems with the people around him, and he's in this state of despair and hopelessness. And that's when he gets snatched out and sent into the other world. And Shawshank Redemption, the other world, is the prison that he winds up in. So let's take a look at one more example. How about a classic Robert Zemeckis, Back to the Future?
Believe me, Marty, you're better off without having to worry about all the aggravation and headaches of playing at that dance.
You're absolutely right, Marty. The last thing you need is headaches.
Kids, we're gonna have to eat this cake by ourselves. Your Uncle Joey didn't make parole again. I think it would be nice if you all dropped him a line.
Uncle Jailbird Joy?
We all make mistakes in life, children.
I missed my bus. Hey, see you later, Pop. Woo! Come on, time to change that oil.
Okay, so in Back to the Future, again, something's not right with the world. And what is it in Back to the Future? Well, it's characterized by all of the members of his family. They all exhibit one quality, and that is lack of living up to their potential. I think that's a good way to summarize it. They're riding in buses, working in low-level jobs, not really caring, not really trying. And again, do you get the sense of boredom again? Lack of excitement, lack of adventure, boredom. And so this is going to necessitate, again, him going into this other world, which is the time machine, and having this adventure where he will develop qualities that can fix this world. So that's really one of the keys here, is that there's something wrong with the world that needs fixing. And then when the person goes on this adventure, which doesn't relate to that world, but somehow when they come back, they're in a position, maybe not literally in the story, but symbolically, to now handle whatever it is that's wrong with this world. Okay, so I think we're getting a pretty good handle on the anticipation stage here. Let's look at one more example. This is Tom Hanks in the beginning of Castaway, another great Robert Zemeckis film that is the Voyage and Return plot. For this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a YouTube channel named Logos Made Flesh, and he does a nice little video, a nice little commentary on Castaway. And so I think I'll just play a little bit of that video, and you can listen to his commentary on the opening of Castaway.
Castaway ends where it begins, and exactly halfway in between, at the 1 hour and 7 minute mark, Chuck literally performs the act of casting something away. An act which results in a very significant split.
Time rules over us without mercy.
It's no accident that the film introduces Chuck as a systems analyst devoted to controlling chaos by the man-made structure of the clock.
Allow ourselves the sin of losing track of time.
And yet, ironically, it's his expectation and means of control which leads him to the island, where he finds the watch, which Kelly has given him, broken.
Okay, so Castaway is just an amazing movie. It's so well done, so well put together, similar to Back to the Future. It's a mature Robert Zemeckis that's doing this, a young Robert Zemeckis doing Back to the Future. But so you can see, again, there's something wrong with the way that the Tom Hanks character here is living in the real world. And then this island now, he winds up cast away on an island, like Robinson Crusoe getting cast away, like Alice going down the rabbit hole, like Andy Dufresne going into prison, like Michael J. Fox going back in time, where this world now has the wisdom that he needs to deal with the real world. The fake world or the dream world or the alternate world has that wisdom. And so you want to set up, if you're writing one of these, it seems to me, based on all of this analysis, is you want to set up what's wrong with the world and what is wrong with the world view of the protagonist. You can see the FedEx idea. Time rules over us. He's being ruled by time, and then he winds up in a world where there is no time. I think one reviewer put it, it's the clock versus the compass in Castaway. Okay, so in light of the clock there, what we're seeing is two sort of symbols that keep coming up. Have you noticed? There's, of course, the clock in Castaway, and then there's the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, who is late. And you're going to notice rabbits and clocks and round circles that sort of like the moon coming up again and again in this plot type. Now, this is a book called The Big Book of Symbols here. And basically, it talks about how the rabbit has pretty much always been associated with the moon in ancient cultures. So this is Mayan here. This is the rabbit in the moon. Now, this is Chinese embroidery. And the rabbit here is mixing the elixir of immortality above a dragon here. This is also Mayan goddess with a rabbit. Of course, you've got the rabbit with the clock here in Alice in Wonderland, and then the Matrix, Follow the White Rabbit, and then you've got Peter Rabbit here. And this is sort of how the rabbit goes in the moon. So what's going on here with these symbols of time and the moon and the rabbit? Okay, so that's what we should really look into here before we go on. So let's take a look at a scene from The Matrix.
We'll need a search running.
Has already begun.
You're 2 hours late.
I know. It's her fault.
You ever have that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or still dreaming? Yeah. Sure. I'll go.
Okay, so he sees the white rabbit here. He's told to follow the white rabbit. And that is what leads him now into this adventure into the other world. Okay, so now let's take a look at Alice in Wonderland. That's obviously what they're referring to, and the Tim Burton version of it.
Will you be my wife?
Well, everyone expects me to. And you're a lord. And I don't want to end up like... But this is happening so quickly, I think I need a moment.
Okay, so it's very similar to what we've seen before. Something's wrong with the normal world. She gets proposed to. She's not ready for this. She doesn't know what to think about it. So she follows this white rabbit, and she goes down the rabbit hole, and she winds up in an upside down world. So this is kind of what you see here. There's some kind of a portal, and then the world that you wind up in is in some sense upside down. Okay, so let's look at how it happens in Wizard of Oz.
Come on. Goodbye, Professor Marvel, and thanks a lot.
All right, so very similar themes here. So the world isn't quite right. She winds up, we're not sure really if she was hit on the head and she's dreamed this whole thing, or if she really got taken up in the tornado and wound up in this other world. That's again, there's this dream and sleep, alive or dead. The same thing with Neo in the Matrix. The computer says, wake up. There's a sense that this world is the world that you need to wake up from, and this other world, this imaginary world, this fantasy world, this dream world is maybe more real than this world, So there's something about this. And so the moon and the rabbit, okay? The moon is what rules the night, and that's when you're asleep, and that's when you're dreaming. The moon is reflected light. In moonlight, you can't quite see things as clearly. The moon, you could say, is kind of the inverse of the sun, because the sun is the bright light and the moon is the reflected light, the looking glass, the mirror of the sun. And so why are things upside down? Why are big things small and small things big in this other world? For some reason, keeps popping up in these stories. So now let's take a look at the way that the dream stage is entered. Now we saw a clip there of Tim Burton's Alice falling down the rabbit hole and winding up in the upside down world. We saw Dorothy here from Wizard of Oz. She winds up in a tornado, and then she goes from a black and white world into a color world. And again, there's this sleep metaphor. But now let's take a look at how they do it in the Matrix.
Welcome, Neo. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole? You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. You felt it your entire life. There's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is. Like a splinter in your mind. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage. A prison. For your mind. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
The pill you took is part of a trace program.
What does that mean?
It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
Okay, so we saw, of course, all of the references in the Matrix to Dorothy. We're not in Kansas anymore. Do you want to go down the rabbit hole with Alice in Wonderland? You can stay in Wonderland if you take the blue pill. So obviously, the writers of the Matrix understood that they were using this story type. But what's interesting about that other world? So we've got this upside down quality. We've got this kind of emerging. This is from Shawshank Redemption when they first show up to the prison. They're strip searched, naked as the day they're born, as is quoted in the book and in the movie. Neo as well is sort of born into this world. Alice here and Dorothy, they sort of fall into this other world. So that it's really a rebirth or a birthing metaphor into this world where they are rabbits. You might be able to think of it that way. They're little rabbits now in this big world, and they have to learn to navigate themselves in this other world. So let's look at two more. Let's look at Castaway, and then we'll just go right into Chronicles of Narnia.
Eric is next. Fuel 905.5.
expecting Tamara at one's.
Okay, so there you have one of the most intense plane crash scenes in cinema history. And Tom Hanks' character winds up um, basically emerging again as kind of a newborn in a world that he doesn't know anything about. So it's kind of a second birth. It's kind of like you're starting out as an infant again, you might say. Nothing works like it did, that he knew everything that he knew before that got him through life doesn't work anymore. So his pager doesn't work, his clock doesn't work, the watch that his fiance gave him doesn't work anymore. In the Chronicles of Narnia, it's entering into this magical world where anything could happen. There's endless possibilities, and so that's really the way that the dream stage is entered into. Okay, so I ran out of light. The sun went down yesterday, so I'm going to pick it up again here this morning. But I think I'm going to go ahead and release this portion of the video. So we made it up through into the dream stage. So basically, so far in our Voyage and Return journey, we made it through the anticipation stage, which is where somebody's falling asleep, someone's bored, something's not right with the world, and then they go down the rabbit hole and they wind up in this upside down world, this second birth into the dream stage. And so check back. I'm going to get this next video out as fast as I possibly can, but please let me know what you think. Leave a comment, and I'd love to dialogue with you about this plot type. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.